All right. Well, it's Friday, and we are recording
Friday.
it, not live streaming, because Facebook has not been friendly with me live streaming. I don't know which buttons I'm not pushing correctly. So we will be posting this recording onto Facebook before 6 p.m., which is our normal time to do our podcast. And we've got a special guest tonight, Lauren Brandon. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Well, this is going to be great. We've got Ted Gerard. Hey, Ted, how's it going?
Going good. Yeah, just getting ready for the weekend, as usual.
This a good weekend. It's gotten a little cooler here. And I've got to do a shout out to Rick Simpson, who helped make this podcast possible by reaching out to Lauren and talking with her at some races and then putting us in contact with her. So this is fantastic. So, Lauren, you're originally from are you originally from Connecticut or Fort Worth, Texas, do you say?
So I was born in Connecticut, lived there for 4 years. Then I actually lived in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area for yeah, until I went to college. So then was in Nebraska for college, back to San Francisco for a while, and then Fort Worth for 10 years, now Utah.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, it's your almost neighbors, being up in Park City, Utah, and that's wonderful that we're in the same general region. And I think everyone, it's important to know that you've had already a fabulous triathlon career, and I want you to hit some of the highlights. But you're always known for your fabulous swim. And just for context, I looked up some of your times, and so people know you did 1,000 yard freestyle in 9:50, which is just amazing. And hopefully I found the right number on that. But you competed in the 400 and the 800 meter swim, 1650, and somehow you're doing 400 IM as well. Is that right?
Yes, in college I was 500 mile and 400 IM, so all the fun events.
Yeah, that's brutal then, and so that's fantastic. So great swimming background. We want to tap into that as well as your expertise on biking and running as well. But before I get going too far, I do want to sort of just toss it back over to you and tell us how you got involved in triathlon and give us a big picture of your pro triathlete career.
Yeah, so like you said, I was a swimmer from little girl, started when I was 5. Went to University of Nebraska, ended my career at Olympic trials in 2008. And I met my husband in college, my first weekend of college. And he'd just become a professional triathlete. So that was back in 2003. And that was kind of my first introduction to triathlon. I didn't really, of course, I knew what a triathlon was, but I didn't really know many people that did it. And so he was doing the ITU route, like the Olympic distance, trying to go to the Olympics. And so that's kind of what I knew of the next few years was really the ITU circuit and him just traveling the world and racing in all these crazy places. And I knew that once I kind of ended my swim career, I would love to try a triathlon. So in 2009, I did my first one, Pacific Grove. Don't know if you guys have ever raced there.
Hmm.
No,
Oh,
Pacific Grove. So it's in like Monterey area, California. Freezing cold swim, you know. But yeah, that was my first triathlon and was just kind of hooked from there. I absolutely loved it. I had a long ways to go. Like my first ride, I just kind of learned to ride a bike. And I remember my first race, I couldn't take my hands off the handlebars in order to grab a water bottle and, was just trying to start to run. So it was definitely yeah, I had a huge learning curve, but absolutely loved it. So the original plan, since I was a swimmer, was to go the Olympic route and do the ITU racing. Um, and I quickly found that like my first pro race was 2011, and those races are just they're so incredibly fast, right? And the bike is crazy with the packs and me just kind of learning how to ride. I was very uncomfortable, very scared, and found that I just couldn't quite run fast enough. So I dabbled in that here and there for the first few years, but then was really fortunate. Back then they had the Olympic non-draft series. There was the Lifetime series and High V series. So I was able just to race, 15, 20 times a year, Olympic distance, non-draft, and really just kind of learn the sport and kind of yeah, build my endurance. And because running, I was always getting injured. So just trying to kind of do everything consistently and learn how to race a bit more. And then started 70.3s 2015 and full Ironmans in 2016. And yeah, still focusing on the fulls. Feel like I still am trying to get it right. That's the um, joy and challenge, I guess, of full distance racing. But I love it. I love this sport, love the community. And so, yeah, I've been in it a long time and still going.
Awesome. So I'm gonna follow up on something you said, and once again we said we probably would go off of script. So you coming from a swim background, and a lot of people that come from a swim background struggle with running. And the biggest struggle in my experience in working with people that are swimmers is with injury. And I just think it's, has to do with, the years and years and years of swimming and not having like the bone density or the tendon strength or whatever the case may be. So as the time has gone along, what have you done to kind of mitigate the risk of injury in your running?
Yeah, running has been very tough for me. Like when I first started, I remember those first couple of years, I felt like I was only running during races because I'd be so injured in between that I was never actually training. And but like you said, it was just a development phase and I needed to just continue to build in some miles. And so eventually just we would I guess the biggest thing was we knew it was just consistency, right? And so at the beginning, if I could only run, hey, 4 times a week at 30 minutes to be consistent, then that's what we did. And so it's taken, I mean, gosh, I've been doing this, yeah, 14 years. And, I still have to watch myself. But the goal is always to just try and be consistent. So, um, we don't do a ton of intensity on the run. We kind of save that. I would say the most intensity in my training is on the bike because, yeah, I guess least likely to get injured. Um, Running, yeah, just aiming to be consistent. And, I do a couple strength training sessions a couple of times a week as well to, hopefully help those muscles and ligaments and everything, like you said. And also kind of doing on various surfaces. So, fortunately, here in Park City, we have a ton of trails. And I love trail running. So, most of my runs are actually on the trails during the summer. And then during the winter, because we have proper winter here, I'm on the treadmill for, yeah, like 6 months of the year, which honestly, I've found that I've actually been able to be quite consistent because I guess it's just a little less pounding on the legs. And yeah, so even doing like my couple hour long runs, because I always do a spring Ironman. So I'm doing an Ironman build over the winter and yeah, still getting in my long runs on the treadmill. But it seems to, if we're just careful, do a long run, take a couple days off, and then sometimes we'll do back to back days, but if we do back to back running, it might be a 30-minute run, hour run the next day. So, yeah, we're just careful and just really aim for the consistency and not to push things too much. Um, and if I do feel a niggle, then we either skip or I have the lever system, that, yeah, you can hook on and pull yourself up. So I've used that as well. So, yeah, just being careful, really.
Well, I love it. So we actually interviewed the founder of the Lever last week. Believe it or not.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
I own a Lever as well, and I think
They're amazing.
it's a great tool to have. That being said, though, I love the fact that you mentioned like consistency and the 30-minute run. Like I
Hmm.
think it's oftentimes overlooked how important consistent like 30-minute runs or 40-minute runs or
Hmm.
even 20-minute runs can be
Yep.
in developing a run pedigree. And so
Hmm.
I love the fact that you did that. And, I think that that's going to bode well for you, like in your future development. So that's great. So let's take this another step further. So you mentioned the trail running and
Yeah.
another area where we're going to go, but I'm a big advocate of trail running as well. And I think that there's a lot that can be gained from trail running, but I want to hear your perspective on why you choose to do trail running? Not just because you live in such a beautiful place, but I mean,
Yeah. Yes, that does help. Even in Fort Worth, we had a trail that was like a gravel dirt surface, and my husband was coaching me back then, and he always was like, I think this is so great for you because it's kind of an uneven surface, you are working like those ligaments a bit more. And so that's kind of like one aspect. I think it's just some good development for, yeah, ligaments and muscles. But what I personally love is I like getting on the trails and not having to worry about pace. So, you can just go and run and enjoy it. And yeah, there's no stress about, or at least for me, I never have intervals when I'm doing trail running. So it's just go off, go run, enjoy, and just get the time on your feet. And I think that's just important to do, right? We have so much technology. I know we might go down this route, but um, everything is like we have pace and power and heart rate and just so much stuff all the time. I think sometimes it's good to kind of get rid of that stuff and just, yeah, not get stressed out about the specifics and just kind of go enjoy a workout. So that's why I personally love the trail running. Is just, yeah, not to stress about anything and just get the time in on my feet.
I love this, and we've actually done a lot of work on body weight support running, as
Okay.
well as looking at running on different surfaces, like you talk
Hmm.
about that variability part. And both
Yeah.
Ted and I really are big advocates of doing that type of training, even training in different shoes, on subsequent.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, coming from a swim background where swim workouts are very, you follow a regime and it's very, prescribed. How did you come up with this way to stay consistent? When did your attention focus on consistency was the most important thing for you?
For running,
For any of the sports?
anything. Yeah. I mean, I think I just spent so many years, so much time being injured, especially on the run that we saw, okay, like for me, if I'm, I have training peaks, I look at the hours. If I go over 5 hours a week of running, I will most likely get injured. Like that is just how it's been. And so we're like, okay, if we can keep it, if at 4.5 hours I can stay healthy and stay consistent but get in the work, then that's way better than doing a 5.5 hour week and then I can't run for a week, or I'm on the lever for 2 weeks because I can't run. So I think just finding that it's way better to do a little bit less, but be able to be consistent than do too much and then, yeah, not run for weeks at a time. Because I've had lots of periods in my career where, yeah, I have not been running. And even before Ironmans, I have, there's a couple times where I went in and I hadn't run for a few weeks. And that's not the ideal prep you want going into a race. Um, Luckily we have three sports, so there's plenty of other stuff to do. But yeah, it's always rough if that's how you're entering an Ironman. So I think, yeah, just realizing that it's better not to push things too much and just be consistent.
Love it.
So yeah, I couldn't agree more, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, is like
Yeah.
I've had some shoulder problems myself.
Okay.
And I know that if keep my swims between 2000 and 2200, and I do it every
Yep.
other day, I can,
Okay. Yeah.
right? If I say, oh, I think I could do 25, and I start pushing, I fall back, and then I can't swim for a week. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd rather just be consistent, swim my
Hmm.
2000, 2200, get out of the pool, even though like the group I'm swimming with, they might be swimming 4000, and sometimes it's like, well, Ted's getting out again, but I don't
Yeah.
care, right? Because I have a different issue than everyone else there, and the consistent swimming has made me way better than swimming
Hmm.
4000, 4000, and then oh, I can't swim for a week, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think, you've talked about, obviously this podcast goes to a lot of age groupers who are listening, and I coach a few people, and it's the same thing. It's even if you're looking at long-term development, right? Like it's about trying to find the training that you can do that you're going to be consistent at, than trying to have like these huge weeks and then then you're so stressed or so tired, or then you have so much work to make up that then you like hardly do anything the next week. So for me, you have athletes that are like, oh, I can do more. But it's like, well, you can, but I think that's really in the long run going to hurt you because you're just going to be too stressed, too tired. So I'd rather have athletes, we obviously have to kind of get down to things sometimes for short bits of time before a big race, but for the most part, I just want to see consistency over swim, bike, run. And it's like if you're super busy and swimming takes a lot of time, you have to go to the pool, and so to me that's the one. Hey, if we can only swim once a week or twice a week, then that's what we do, right? And so yeah, just finding schedules that truly work and that are actually going to work for each individual so that they can stay consistent. Because yeah, if you're going to have a week off every 3 to 4 weeks, that's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot worse than just kind of doing a couple hours less each week, right?
Agreed.
I love it. It speaks to the lifestyle approach to triathlon because, and this is something that we really advocate for on this podcast, is we want people to enjoy triathlon over a long period of time, as
Yeah.
opposed to just this window. And we
Right.
talk about that consistency, that we train at an intensity today so we can train again tomorrow. And
Yeah.
so I love this. I'm interested in your races where you go off on the swim and you're all on your own. I'm interested in how you approach that, where a lot of us will swim and a lot of people listening will pace off of someone else that's near them.
Mm.
You typically don't have anyone near you. So how do you approach it on race day? Now we're springboarding from the consistent training to race day. How do you approach that?
Yeah. I have a lot more ladies that have joined me recently, which has been nice. Honestly, it's yeah, my last few races actually have women that we've been working together, which is really nice. But if I am by myself, you know, I'm someone for swimming, like just want to be a steady pace. Like I'm not overdoing it because I want to get out on the bike and, be like roaring ready to go. So again, like I think just with all my swim background, like I'm able to do an Ironman swim, like feeling pretty good and not having to push things too much. And yeah, so like it might vary, I guess. Like if I'm not feeling good one day, then the pace might be slower. But so for me, yeah, I guess what feels good on the day. Yeah, and just never pushing too much. I get it, especially as I get older, I feel like I have this one speed, especially in the water. So because I just swim so much less than I used to. So my swimming's just a bit different than it used to be. But yeah, so just kind of finding a nice pace, probably the L2 pace that I do every day.
Awesome. So let's follow up on pace. And I love this top, this thing, the pace. And we've actually, I think 3 weeks ago we did a podcast on pacing, and pacing and training in particular. So you mentioned you don't have many gears that you really go into when you're swimming. You have a pretty standard pace. But I'm just going to ask you some fun numbers. What's your like threshold run pace?
Oh God, I don't even know.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I'm
No, no, but I
someone.
no, but I love that because it doesn't because like right, it's not that important.
Yeah,
It's
I'm.
no, no, I no. That answer was I see. We didn't even practice this, but that is such a good answer because
um. Yeah.
well, if you were to guess, I'll tell you what. I've looked at some of your race results. I'm gonna
Okay.
say
Okay.
in the low sixes.
Low sixes. Um. Ooh, I don't know about that. Is it
Okay,
threshold? Do you guys go? What would your threshold be? More like 70? Like
like
what
a full.
pace?
If you're gonna do like a 10K,
10K. Ooh, yeah. No, probably more like 6:30,
okay,
6:45.
so mid sixes. Okay. So then my next question is, where do you spend the bulk of your running time? What pace?
Ooh, the bulk. Probably 8 minutes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, eight. Yeah, because if I look at a weekly training, Maybe we have a session, probably have an easy run, out on the trails.
Yep.
Probably have a treadmill session where I'm doing, maybe some very short 10K pace, like 30-second fast
Yep.
stuff. But yeah, not much, just like getting the legs going a little bit. And then, maybe I have one where we're doing some hill reps or something that's, you know, more Ironman pace. But even Ironman pace here is really hard for me. So I even don't do too much of that. And then the long run, sometimes it's just kind of 2 hour run, but sometimes maybe like my last long run, I actually have some intervals that are at Ironman pace. But yeah,
What
other
would
than
that
that,
two
it's
hour
like,
what would the 2 hour run pace be?
yeah, probably depends on the day, but anywhere from 7:45 to 8:45, like depending how I feel, and might start off, yeah, 8:45 and then kind of build into it. So I would say probably averaging like 8 to 8:15. So yeah.
So when we talked about pacing a few weeks ago, not with you, we talked about like gears and like being able to run efficiently at 6:30, at 7, at 7:30, at 8, at 8:30, at 9, and that makes a really good runner when you have this. And it seems to me like you're doing a lot of variability in pacing on the run. And I'm wondering if you think that that's an appropriate way for an age grouper to approach it. And secondly, do you think that might have actually helped with your injury situation running?
Yeah. Yes, I see with my athletes, people definitely like to run fast, faster. Like if I were to give an easy run, like I do some easy runs at 10-minute mile pace, right? No problem. Love it. Give me a slow run any day. But a lot of my athletes, it's like they say it feels uncomfortable, to go slow. And so, like you're saying, is it the efficiency? Is it, yeah, like how is their run changing so that when they're running slow, it's uncomfortable, right? Or is it they're just uncomfortable with being slow because they don't want to go that slow? So it's always interesting to me. But yeah, people get so caught up on the pace, like, oh well, I'm racing at 8-minute mile pace, like I should be training at that pace. And it's like, well, no, because that's really, really hard on your body. And then, if you're doing that for a run, well then what about for your second workout? Or what about the next day? Like that fatigue is just going to be so high that, like we said, then you might be so tired the next week that you're not going to be able to stay consistent. So um for me, I think doing those slower runs, especially on the trails, because especially here we have a lot of elevation change, and so I am getting my heart rate up quite high, even running at 12-minute mile pace. But it's so much easier on your body, right? So yeah, I think having those slow runs ultimately makes it so that I can keep the consistency up and keep those hours up, or else, yeah, I mean, if I do a hard run, that's when I feel like my lower legs, I'm probably trying to do some extra rolling and stuff because, yeah, I feel, yeah, things are a bit sore or whatever. So it's those hard runs that I think are just so hard on your body, you know?
I love this, and this is so refreshing to hear a professional triathlete talk about this because a lot of times we have this mindset: oh, pro triathletes, they must be data driven, they must be, very scheduled and this and that. It really is
I am not.
refreshing. No, to hear that, what you're doing works and you're very successful with it, but racing by feel and enjoying the sport and enjoying the training, because I think a lot of people do miss out on that when they get really stuck on some of the metrics and looking down at the watch and trying to hit certain numbers. So no, I think this is really refreshing to hear.
Yeah, well, I mean, even when I mean, you guys have been doing this sport a long time too, and it's like the amount of technology that there is now is crazy. And of course, it's hard for people not to get caught up in it. And, there's times, of course, like, yes, we want to be this pace. We want you to push this power. We want you to do this heart rate. But it still also has to be how you're feeling on the day. I mean, maybe you slept terrible, or maybe you had a lot of life stress, and that kind of stress definitely carries over to your training. And so, yeah, it's still, even though maybe you're supposed to go 8 minute pace, like maybe that day 8:30 is just like it feels like it, it should. And yeah, so it's just kind of interesting. Like you have to be able to be, I think, a little bit flexible with the pace and power, just depending on how you're feeling. And I notice it a lot more at altitude because the recovery is terrible. And so, I might need a little extra recovery time. And sometimes, I talk to my coach, Julie, and I'm like, hey, I need an extra day. Yeah, I think that's another thing is being able to have a coach that is flexible with your training and can, listen to you and how you're feeling and be okay with changing things. And um, yeah, so
No, I love the fact that the last thing you just said about having a coach that's flexible and understands and I think that a lot of people get a coach, and I don't want to say anybody negatively, but they get a coach that's kind of like that old school club swim coach,
yeah,
right?
I
And
was a club swim coach, so I get it.
because especially when you're dealing with kids, there's lots of structure,
Yeah,
and but with adults, we're dealing with people that, at least in my world of coaching,
yeah,
they are doing this because they love it and they want to be better and they want to be, and we have to be, as coaches, we have to be really flexible with people, and especially if we're coaching remotely, like when they send you a text message, man, I slept terrible last night.
yeah,
What do you want me to do? And I'm like, it says 4 by 5 100 at this. You're go hammer it.
yeah.
That's not that's the old school mentality of like
Right,
when you were a kid in high school. But that
right,
doesn't
right.
really work well, in my opinion, with age group triathletes.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, like there's so many other stresses that we deal with. I mean, triathlon, like you guys said, like this should be something you enjoy. It should be a hobby that, yeah, is fun. And of course, yeah, sometimes maybe it feels a bit more of a grind than other times, but ultimately it should be fun and you should enjoy it and enjoy the process of achieving your goals. Like that's why we do it. So it has to fit into your life, and life changes, like an athlete, they just had a second baby and it's like, oh God, like your sleeping is terrible now. And so, okay, like how can we adjust this? And how can we best put together a training plan for Kona when you're not sleeping well? Or yeah, and just being flexible. Like you said, you get a text message and you're like, okay, no, you're not feeling well, you need to take the day off. And but that's why, yeah, I guess that's the great thing about having a coach, because we ourselves, we put so much pressure, right? It's like, oh, this is my training plan, I'm supposed to do this, let's do it. But you just kind of sometimes need someone to tell you that no, it's going to be okay if you miss this session. Like you're tired, obviously it's not a great day for you to do this. And yeah, we just need that reassurance that it's going to be okay if we miss these couple days or whatever. So yeah, I think finding the right coach for you is important. Like some people definitely, I always tell if we have a new athlete coming to, I work under Julie Dibbins, my coach, and if there's a new athlete, I'm like, I'm not the one that's going to be this super hard ass that's going to like give you this crazy amount of training. Like that's just not me. I'm going to be like the supportive coach that's a little bit more yeah, positive and encouraging, and just trying to, yeah, that's just kind of my personality. Obviously that's how I probably come across, but yeah, so everyone kind of needs something different too, right? Some people need the, no, this is what you're going to do, but I think most people just really need the support.
I love it. And one of the themes, our theme for our Las Vegas Triathlon Club last year was enjoy the journey. And this certainly seems
Oh,
that you attest to that's
yeah,
really a foundation is you've got to enjoy it, the training and
yeah,
enjoy the racing. But our theme this year is fearless. And
Ooh.
something that I'd like to hear from you on, because I know you gravitate towards the 70.3 and the full distance races. Every time, everybody seems to run into a dark spot along the way, especially in a full race. And trying to get out of that dark spot is not always easy. I'm curious, how do you approach that? When do you anticipate that something's going to happen, or is it something that you have a way to avoid them, or when you do get them, how do you get out of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I've done, I don't know, maybe I've started about 30 Ironmans and finished, I don't know, 25, 26, who knows, something like that. Maybe even more now. I think that was my number last year. But I always say I've had more probably bad races than good ones. So, you do see people that seem to be so incredibly consistent over an Ironman distance, which amen to them. That is truly amazing. I am not one of those people. It is a roller coaster of results for me. And so now, like you said, I feel like I anticipate that something's going to go wrong. And if it doesn't, then that's just amazing, right? But yeah, it's such a long day. Like we can expect maybe you're going to have a mechanic of some sort. Like Texas, I had a flat tire. I was very fortunate there was a mechanic nearby and helped me. Um, I have completely blown up at races many, many times. Even just Lake Placid that I raced a few weeks ago, basically hit the halfway mark and it was like my body didn't want to function anymore. So that was tough. You're walking at mile 14 thinking, okay, I have another half marathon to run, feeling terrible. Yeah, what do we do here? So I, walk through the aid station. I'm like, okay, what? At that point, gels are so hard for me to get down. So it's like, okay, what calories can I get down? I had like some chews and Coke and water. And, you're trying to just get all these things in to see if just a little bit more calories, something will help. Didn't really help. So then for me, it's kind of like I have to change my mindset. Like, okay, I'm no longer trying to get on the podium. Like that's not happening today. So what can I concentrate on? How can I still like be positive? And so for me, it turns to trying to cheer on other people, and like seeing the other pro women just smash it, like trying to cheer for them. And yeah, just kind of more enjoying it as much as you can. What I love about the looped courses is that there's thousands of us out there and we're all together. And so you start chatting with different people and it just gets you to the finish line, right? And all of the people out there cheering. So yeah, sometimes you kind of have to change your mindset when even if you've tried to have your body come around, it doesn't. So some days our bodies just don't want to cooperate, and I feel like there's no rhyme or reason even. Um, so yeah, that's why Ironman really like fascinates me because it is such a challenge, right? I feel like you never know what you're going to get through the day.
Yeah, I love that, and I know exactly. It's amazing to see how many races you've started, and that alone is amazing. But DNFs are not necessarily a bad thing, and this is something Ted and I did a
Mm.
episode on this specifically. For me on
Mm.
iron distance, I'm always like, if I get one out of every four races, that's good. Then
Yeah.
I'm feeling like that's successful. But
Yeah.
the issue of sometimes walking away from a race, it's not a failure. It's more a learning opportunity, or sometimes you just have to for safety reasons or even
Mhm.
injury reasons.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. It's hard, right? Because we spend so much time, energy, money, everything into these races. And, and also like most of us maybe have family with us. And so you feel like you're just letting your team down as well, which is really hard. But yeah, like if you're injured or sick or, like what is the aftermath of this race going to look like if you do decide to finish, right? And so there's definitely been times where I'm like, yeah, this is no, like this is just not happening. Like my in Frankfurt last year, I was just having some back trouble and it got so bad. I'm like, there's no way I'm running. And, I was I can't remember what mile, but I had at least half the marathon left to go. And I'm like, there's just no point in me barely walking through this, and for us, I mean, like I need to recover and try and figure out what's going on so I can go race again soon. And so yeah, you're right. Like a lot of people see it as a failure, maybe like not achieving their goals or DNFing, but yeah, sometimes it is necessary. Yeah.
It's a maturation process. We mature as
Yeah.
triathletes.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
okay.
I think it's easier as well. Like if you've done like 100 triathlons, walking away from one is a lot easier than if it's your first or your second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or this is your
Yeah.
first Ironman or your first 70.3 or whatever. I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit of a different emotional journey.
Hmm.
Like I know like for me during those first few races, there was times I definitely didn't want to finish, but I would have done anything to finish basically, right? Whereas
Yeah.
now I've done so many, if it's not like if something's like my back was hurting or
Oh,
something, I'm like, you know what? Let's just pull the plug on this so I can get my back better,
yeah.
get to the place, and then I'm on the calendar looking for the next race,
Right.
and I
Right.
really try and get it out of my head uh, quickly and look at it not as a failure, just as like, hey, my body wasn't there today. Like, I'm in my 50s, right? Like
Yeah.
my body's not
Yeah.
going to be there every single time I sign up for a race a year in advance.
Right, right. Like that's so hard too. You have to sign up for races and you're making all the plans and you're like, oh God, I really probably shouldn't even be racing this race, but I have everything booked and yeah, it's hard. But I agree. Yeah, it probably yeah, it definitely would depend on more your situation. I mean, if it is your first Ironman and maybe you're going to be one and done, or you only do one a year, or yeah, like you qualified for Kona and it maybe is only going to be your only time. I can see, yes, you're getting to that finish line. I mean, I have walked many marathons in Kona just to get to that finish line and it's miserable, but I don't know, there's something you're just like, I just need to get to the finish line, and but yeah, other ones it's like, nope, DNF. So yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, they're never easy, but like you said, the next day we're just booking the next thing.
Yeah. And a little pro tip here, not that I'm a pro, you are.
Please.
When I sign up for a race, like I do things like, I try and do like my flight on points. So I could like if I'm flying somewhere, so I can get
Yes.
like, I can get the money back or do a refundable. I
Mm-hmm.
try and find a
Mm-hmm.
place that I'm staying that I can get my money back.
Yep.
You Even if it's not the most convenient place. Because
Yep.
I don't want to go race now and not be like, you know, just go there just to do the swim and the bike and then like can't run or
Yeah.
whatever. Or if something comes up, I'm sick or whatever, I want to be able to pull the plug. And
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to get my race entry back, but I'm like, okay, at least I got all those other expenses back. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's it's an important thing to do. Or you just decide I'm going to go there and it's going to be a vacation. I'm not, I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not going to race. Like, John and I are both going to New Zealand, right, for the 70.3 Worlds.
Nice.
If it was to happen that like, I got an injury or whatever and I couldn't race, I'm still going to New Zealand,
You're still going. Yeah.
right? Like,
100%.
it's so I'm looking at it like that too, is like,
Yeah.
if something was to happen, I don't have to race.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
get to race. It's a privilege to race and it's exciting to race, but it doesn't, it shouldn't define us. And
Yeah.
I think that that's an important thing, especially and once again, for age groupers. You're doing this for a living, right?
Yeah. Try.
You're
Try, yes.
trying to do it for a living.
It's
We're
hard.
doing this, it's different for us to a certain extent, So anyways, I think that's
Yeah,
a
no, that's such a good point. I'm doing this big European trip. I'm racing 70.3 Tallinn, Estonia. Then the following weekend, racing 70.3 Zellamzi, Austria. And then I'm doing a training camp in Girona and then going to Nice for World Championships. So it's this
ah,
big thing. And even though it's only, I leave in 2.5 weeks or something, and I'm still booking stuff, but I'm still booking refundable because you you just don't know, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be out thousands of dollars if,
Yeah.
yeah, like an injury pops up or I have to pull out at the last minute. So yeah, and sometimes, it's a little bit, you're like, oh, it's $100 more for refundable. Well, in the long run, it will be smart. It'll be smart.
So I got to tell you, I am so jealous of you going to ZLMC. So John and I both raced there when the World Championships were there in 2016. You were there as well?
Yes,
15, 15,
yes.
2015. And
15, yeah.
I liked it so much. I went back, I think it was 3 years later, and did it like my own little self-training camp there. And
Oh,
I got
cool.
well, the lake was so perfect, and it, I rode the course again, and uh,
Um,
so I'm really jealous because that's one of my like favorite spots in the world, to be honest with you.
That was beautiful.
yeah.
That's the race where I blew a tire out coming down the hill. I was one of many to do that, so
Oh no.
that's
Oh no.
memorable.
That
Well,
that's
Lauren, I
crazy.
could talk with you all day about triathlon. I really appreciate your approach, your mindset, and training and racing. And this has been really, really just refreshing, like I said before, to hear this from an accomplished triathlete like you, and how you approach it. And I hope the people who are listening to just take this to heart. That consistent approach is really important, and to enjoy the training and enjoy the racing. That's what we're doing it for.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. Yeah, we have to go to good places to make
Yeah.
it even more exciting and enjoyable.
Exactly.
Yeah, we both love traveling and racing, and so hopefully we'll cross paths with you at one of your races down the road.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
Awesome.
All right, great. Ted, anything else?
No, that was great. Thank you so much. It's always
Yeah.
nice to have guests on our podcast, and this was phenomenal because honestly, I think your philosophy is very, very similar to ours. And honestly, I didn't know that before. So like
Yeah.
it's honestly great to run into like-minded triathletes, and so best of luck on your European trip, and,
Thank you.
and especially in ZLMC. I know the World Championship is probably a bigger thing, but I mean, to me, that's a special place. So I hope you have a
Yeah.
great time and a great trip, and enjoy the food over there because we know it's amazing.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm very excited for your European trip. So thank you guys. And yeah, all the best to you guys and all of the listeners in upcoming races.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. And if you would just hold on for a second, but
Yeah, yeah.
thanks everyone for listening, and this has been really great. Okay, thanks everyone.